So I had this idea as we were going throughout this past week and all that has happened. And on Tuesday morning after the tornado hit Monday night, we gathered with our staff at, I think it was 8 a.m. at Alpha Community Church, our partner church. And we really had no idea at that point in time what all had happened and where all there was need. And so we went out to Darden, and we joined Stu and Amber Motes out there, who Stu and Amber were in the 9 o'clock service. And Stu owns a tree removal service. And as all these other people from out of town came in to make money, I want to tell you what Stu did. Stu got his entire crew into his neighborhood, which was one of the worst hit, and worked for free to clear the entire neighborhood. And it was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. And it was unreal because later on, city officials were telling us which neighborhoods were hit the hardest. And I started talking about Darden, and they were like, "Oh, Darden, that wasn't bad." I was like, "Because you came to assess it after we had already worked on it with 90 people for 8 hours each." And so we met and we headed out to Darden and we worked the entire day, and we were joined by about 60 Be Hope people over time as the day went on. And then we went Tuesday night, we met as a staff after working the entire day to set out just kind of a strategy and a plan, and we built the site to collect information. And then the next day, we got a call from the fire chief, who I have actually talked to more this week than I have my wife. So the fire chief, we're getting pretty tight now. And they wanted us to come to a meeting, and we had no idea what to say. That we just want to kind of assess what's going on within the area. And the meeting was with the city council and the mayor and the fire chief and the police chief. And other than the Chamber of Commerce, we were the only non-governmental organization there present at the meeting, which speaks to what you've done. And we're there at the meeting, and we had decided the night before that, hey, the best thing we can do as a church is debris removal. That's where we need to focus within there. And we said, we don't know how we're going to handle donations. We're not going to take donations. And we're there at the meeting, and they're talking through different things, and they're giving updates on the electric and the streets and the water and the power and all these other things. And then the city manager, Pete Landrum, who's just a fantastic person, he says, the problem is we're getting inundated with volunteers. We don't know what to do with volunteers. We're getting calls and we don't know where to send them. At that point in time, I said, well, we've actually already sent out 250 volunteers. Send them to us. And so Pete looks out, oh, I got a lot more. I am all for the applause and the responsiveness, but we just need to space it out just a little bit. Otherwise, we're gonna be here all morning because a lot has happened. And so he was going through it. He was like, we've already sent out 250. And he goes, all right, send them to Be Hope. And everybody goes, okay, we're sending volunteers to Be Hope. And then the meeting went on a little bit longer. And the fire chief goes, here's the problem with taking in actual bottled water and other things like that is there's some restrictions and we're not able to distribute them. And he looks at me and he goes, can you guys at Be Hope take donations? And we had said we would not. And then the fire chief looks at you and says, will you take donations? Yes, we will. It's kind of one of those, when you swore that you'll never do something again because you don't like doing it, and then your wife asks you to do something, like, will you do this? Yes, I will. And so we started taking donations. And then a little bit later on in the meeting, they said, hey, there was another group that said, hey, here's the problem is we can't take financial donations. We can't take financial contributions because of these restrictions that we have because we're a government organization. Would you take financial donations? Why, yes, we do every Sunday. We're really good at that. And all these things just kept changing. And at the end of that, there's we had to find, and this is really hard, there's this really fine line between emergency response and tree removal service. That there are people who had desperate need that we were there, and we had on our form that you could fill out online, hey, rate your level of need 1 to 5. And there's one lady, and I'm sure it felt like this to her, but she filled out a 4, that it was a 4. Just remember, there's people who couldn't get in or out of their house. So she filled out a 4. So we sent a crew of like 20 people over to her house, and we got there, and she had 2 branches underneath her playground that were probably there from the fall. Like not the tornado, from the fall they were there. And I said, "This is a 4? Yeah, I didn't want the kids to get hurt." "You don't have any kids in the house." "Yeah, but sure, we'll move your branches." And we had like a couple situations like that. And I was talking to a friend, and at the end of Tuesday, when we still didn't know what all was going on, he said, "Hey, let's just remember we're not a tree removal service." It's like, "Yeah, you're right. We're not a tree removal service." And then we spent the next 5 days being a tree removal service. But I was sitting in that meeting with all the city officials, and as we became a tree removal service, and we became a donation drop-off place, and we became a financial donation drop-off place, and all these other organizations kept saying, "Hey, we can't do this because of this restriction. We can't do this because of this regulation. Would you do this?" And we said yes every single time. And the thing that I realized in that moment, and people will say like, "What is the church? What is the church? What is the church supposed to be?" Because some of you, you're disoriented at times with what we do here on Sunday morning, because this is not the kind of church that you grew up in. This is not the kind of church that you remember. And I just had this realization that the church is whatever the community needs it to be. That is what we will become. And it's amazing because like there's so many things in the history of this church that we used to do that we no longer do. And some of you complain that we no longer do it. And we're not bringing it back, okay? But as I look even towards the future, it's not to say we will do everything that anyone wants us to do. It is whatever the community needs us to be, that is what we will become. And I could spend this entire time, and I'm gonna share some more stories from this past week throughout the message, but I could spend the entire time just celebrating what you have done as a church, and it's absolutely amazing. And one of the things that if I could just pause for a second, there are so many people who contributed that I couldn't even begin to name them, but I do wanna call out one certain group that our pastoral staff shifted from trained in theology to emergency response disaster center in like an hour. And there's not a single member of our staff who between Tuesday and Saturday that did not work over 80 hours. And so would you take a second and thank our staff for what they've done? Because I am blown away by what they're doing. Thank you. You can sit down. We got stuff to do. You kind of did my thing. This is my favorite thing about standing ovation. Is you call it out and some people start clapping, and then a couple people stand, and then you've got your like early adopters like, "Yeah, we're staying." And then you got that last 10% every time, and you're always like, "Are we doing this? Well, I don't want to be the last person standing. I don't want to be a jerk." All right, and you get up for like 4 claps at the end, and then you pop that down. Congratulations. And I'm just so amazed. But I could spend the entire morning just talking about what's happened. I actually have something more important that we need to talk about this morning along that idea that the church can become whatever the community needs it to be. So the title of the message today is The Wonder of Whatever. That is what we are talking about this morning. The wonder of whatever. And the passage that we're going to look at comes out of Matthew 4, and this is early in the ministry of Jesus. And Matthew gives this just little summary as to what it looked like to be there in the early days as Jesus was revealing who he truly was. And it says this in verse 23. It says, Jesus traveled throughout the region of Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. News about him spread as far as Syria, and people soon began bringing to him all who were sick. And whatever their sickness or disease, or if they were demon-possessed or epileptic or paralyzed, he healed them all. It says large crowds followed him wherever he went. People from Galilee, the 10 towns, Jerusalem, from all over Judea, and from east of the Jordan River. And it's just this little summary at the start that shows the significance of who Jesus was. And as it gives the descriptions to us, a lot of these words are honestly, they're meaningless, right? It goes from the 10 towns. Like, what the heck is the 10 towns? Like, people in the first century knew exactly where the 10 towns were. And it's just this account that as Jesus starts off his ministry, that whether you liked it or not, whether you liked him or not, whether you believed in him or not, that it was something that couldn't be ignored. It was something that you just couldn't cast off. And I believe that's always what the church was meant to be. We had, in the midst of everything that's happened this week, we had someone sign up for our Forward class, which is just our next step for anyone who is looking at how to get further in their faith and how to belong and get plugged into the church. And at the end of the sign up, the question is, how did you hear about Be Hope Church? And they responded with this. They said, it's kind of hard to live in Beaver Creek right now and not know about Be Hope Church and everything they're doing. Oh, that's a good thing right there. But as we look at this account and we see all these people are coming to Jesus, and I think for some of us, we have this preconceived notion as about what is acceptable to come to Jesus for. What is the need that I can have? What is the thing that has to happen in my life, or what I must feel within me in order to come to Jesus? There's this little line in the middle that I think speaks just an enormous amount. And it happens right here in verse 24. It says, news about him spread as far as Syria, and people soon began bringing to him all who were sick. And then it says this, and whatever their sickness or disease, whatever it was, whatever they were struggling with, whatever they were looking for, whatever they were needing, like that one word can be filled in with so many lines. Whatever it was. Here's the reality that I have found in my life, is everyone is looking for something. Every one of us is looking for something. And the quicker you can realize that what your life is, it's in pursuit of whatever that is that you're looking for, the quicker you can come to grips with finding the answer of what that truly is. That for some of us, it's fulfillment. For some of us, it's significance. For others of us, it's meaning, it's purpose. For some of us, it's belonging. For others of us, it's love. That every single one of us is looking for something. And this is what I want to do from time to time is people, like, they ask the wrong question. We are just terrible at asking the wrong question. And people ask them, say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, what's going on? Just explain to me the activity of your life in terms of what you're doing. And the better question to ask is, what are you looking for? Because if we can ask that second question, what you're looking for, what we do is we find the reason behind someone's actions. And so we'll say, what are you doing? And we'll say, well, I'm driving my kid around to 12 tournaments in 3 days. And you go, why? If we ask, what are you doing? We just get a statement on activity. But if we say, hey, what are you looking for? What are you actually trying to find from this activity? We get a better answer. We get, well, I'm actually scared that I'm afraid my kid is gonna fall behind and it's not gonna be as significant. I'm gonna be the one who sets them back. See, that's the better answer. We ask someone, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going out with another person this weekend. No. What are you looking for? What are you actually looking for from these continuous relationships over and over again? We ask the person, what are you doing? Oh, I'm working overtime again. I'm traveling again. I'm trying to get ahead in my career again. No. Not what are you doing? What are you looking for? Well, I have this belief that if I get the right promotion and I make the right amount of income, that my life will have meaning and significance and purpose. And there's this piece within there that we all need to acknowledge, that every single one of us is looking for something. And the sooner that we can identify that, the better our lives will always be. And so it says in this passage, it says, whatever it was in their life, they came to Jesus. I found this fascinating thing this week. The tornado, it went through the northern part of our township. And it quite literally went through the poorer areas of our township, to the middle income areas of our township, to the richer areas of our township. And if you would quite literally just go straight down the line, you would see the gamut of people who lived in our community. And it was interesting as we were sending out teams. I'm gonna give you a little inside information as to the conversations. As we were sending out teams, there was this response of people who just wanted to go to the poorer areas of our township and go, no, I just want to help those who need it most. But this is what I found, and some of you live this out, is when a tornado hits your house, when your life had been upended outside your control, didn't matter how much you made. Didn't matter a bit. That when you walk outside your home and trees have covered your entire lawn, your income is irrelevant. That it's still overwhelming. And people from every area of town cried. And people from every area of town hugged us as we came and offered help. And I almost wanted to pause in that moment because it was literally and metaphorically this unbelievable leveler of life. And all of a sudden, every single one of us was able to see the need that we had and what we were looking for. And I think what happens is we kind of misinterpret this passage, okay? So let me just play this out for just a second, because this is what we think that the passage is saying. If we could go one forward to the first point. We think this, that Jesus is whatever I need. And we go, yeah, that's right? Doesn't that look right? Like we're in church, that looks good, right? No one's responding, good golly. Guys, I've worked 93 hours in the last 6 days. Doesn't that look right? Just humor me for a little bit this morning. No, we think that. And this is what I have found, okay? Is the scripture tells us this, that we have been made in the image of God. That we have been made in the image of God. But this is what I have found, is that while we have been made in the image of God, we far too often then make God in our image. Have you ever met the person who, like, their personality problem, their character issue, they're always quick to point out in everyone else? Like, you've met that person, like, oh, I can't stand them. They're so judgmental. It's really judgmental of you to say. Or this is mine. You know who I really don't like? And I'm completely honest with this. You know who I really don't like? Ultra competitive people. Let me share with you what happened, okay? Let me share with you what happened. This is so bad. It really is. It is so bad. So there was another church that yesterday they asked if they could launch their team from our parking lot, and I'm gonna do my best not to say the name of the church because it's just gonna look bad on us, okay? So they asked if they could launch their team out of our parking lot. So it's like, yeah, that's cool. Absolutely. We are kingdom of heaven people. We are capital C global church. Like, we are team players. Absolutely, you can launch out of our church. And so they pull in and they've got their big box truck with their sign and everything else in our parking lot. And I was like, that's fine. No, this is great. This is a good thing. And then I went over to talk to them just because I'm the pastor and I am kind and gracious always. And so I go over to talk to them. I was like, hey, I saw they were distributing supplies. I thought maybe we could team up together. And I was like, hey, where are you guys going? And they were going to the exact same area that we were deploying some of our teams. I was like, awesome, isn't this fantastic? We're gonna be walking all over each other instead of teaming up. This is, if you would have partnered with us, we could actually like divide and conquer, but okay, that's fine. We're good. Kingdom-minded people, capital C, global church, that's what we're about. And then they were parked in this parking lot over here. And so I started making my way back to where we were launching volunteers. And as I was walking along that grassy spot in our lawn, I noticed that they had taken their church flag and planted it into our ground. You guys remember when Baker Mayfield attempted to plant his flag in the Ohio State turf, because that went well for him. Yeah, that's how I felt. It's okay. Kingdom-minded people, capital C church, this is fine. And their flags are, guys, it's good. And then I walked a little further and I looked out towards the front, and we've got We had so many volunteers coming that day. Like we were anticipating, we had signups for 200 to 300 volunteers. We had over 700 people show up yesterday, okay? So we're kind of a big deal. 40 under 40. Figured if you're here last week and Tim Fisher can make fun of me for that much, I can make fun of myself. So I'm walking along and I'm coming back and I look out towards our entrance and I've already passed one of their flags. And I look out towards our entrance and they have planted 2 flags at our entrance. At our entrance. So I walked back and I told JC, our executive administrator, who likes to remain nameless, but is standing right there in the back across from me, so I need to call you out in this moment. And I told JC, I said, they planted their flags at our entrance. Kingdom-minded people, capital C church. And so he went out and took them out of the ground and put our flags in. Man, competitive people. I just can't stand competitive people. And this is important to understand because every single one of us, the thing that's gonna rub you the wrong way is typically the thing that is most evident of a problem within your character and personality. And what we have a tendency to do is we have a tendency to take our own faults and failures and ascribe them to God himself. Or we take the ways in which those around us have injured us and assumed that it was God who did it. And the failures of our parents become the failures of our Heavenly Father. And the ways in which those around us were not faithful becomes the ways in which that God wasn't faithful. And so what we have a tendency to do, if I could get that line back up here on the screen, Jesus is whatever, we make God in our own image. And that's not the case. If there is one thing I found, it is this, that God is constant. That God is constant, that he doesn't change, that he is faithful no matter what, that God is constant. And what I have found within my own life is that I grow weary. And when I grow weary, I change. We had to actually, this week with our staff, they wouldn't leave. We had to send them home. And the cue that we had to send them home is they started to become a toxic force to those around them. You need to go. No, I don't want to go. No, you're making everybody crazy. It's time for you to go home. You need to get some sleep. You can come back to us when you've had sleep and caffeine. You can come back then. No, we change often for the negative, but God is constant. He's constant. And I'll acknowledge that like every single day this week as I lost more and more sleep, that it was harder for me to keep going every single day. But every single day I showed up, God showed up. Like every single day I was here, God was here as well. Let me share with you just a couple things that happened. It was mind-boggling. We put out a post yesterday that we were in need of chainsaws, which has become amazing. Like on the video, you heard the chainsaw become an instrument in the song. This morning, as I walked in the doors, there were chainsaws all around the entrance, which like any other week of the year, I would think like, what is happening? Is a murder about to take place? Like this is, but today I was like, yep, that looks about right. Here we go. But we put out this need yesterday. We had this need for chainsaws, and this guy shows up and he goes, hey, I heard you need chainsaws. Come with me. And I'm thinking at first, like, do you really need help moving a chainsaw? Like, do I really need? And I got out to his truck and he had bought and donated $7,000 worth of chainsaws and equipment. It was unreal. Then I don't say this to promote companies, but then Meyer had called us and said, hey, we'd like to donate some gift cards. We can get licensed to donate $1,000. And so we went to pick up $1,000 worth of gift cards, and they had $2,800 worth of gift cards for our community for us to distribute. It's unreal. And then this is the coolest one, okay? Is people started showing up from all over. And there was a man here yesterday who was here on a business trip and was staying at a hotel. He's here from California. and he heard what was happening at our church. And so in a dress shirt, he served in this building the entire day. And I met a new friend from West Virginia. His name is Troy. And Troy drove straight here from West Virginia when he heard what had happened, has served the entire time. We actually put him up at the house at the church, and he has not stopped serving the entire week that we've been here. Unreal. And we did this thing. Originally, we didn't want to collect donations, but when the police and fire chief ask if you'll take donations, you say yes. And we got to this point in time where we honestly were overrun with donations, and we had so much water. Like some of you look this morning, you're like, that's a lot of water. That's not a fourth of the water that we used to have. And I did a Facebook Live video making jokes, but some members didn't take my jokes as funny, so we deleted it. I make jokes here all the time that you don't think are funny, and we're fine with it. But I was like, okay, we should take it off. And I actually joke within this that we had so much water that we had no idea what we were gonna do. And next week we have a baptism coming up. We have 15 people who are gonna be baptized. Don't clap yet, okay? And I always share at baptism, I'll say hey, there's nothing magic about the water. It's the decision that you're making. The water comes out of the tap. But if we didn't start giving away some of that water, next week I was gonna say, instead of the water comes out of the tap, I would say, but this water comes from a beautiful mountain spring named Dasani. And we just kept getting all this stuff. And so the other day we told people, we said, hey, we can't take any more donations. We literally have no space left. But when people kept bringing stuff in, we didn't want to turn them away. And then this thing started happening, and I can't even begin to describe it. Is somebody would bring in a donation of stuff that we were no longer accepting, and someone would come 10 minutes later and need that exact thing. And it got to this point in time that if someone brought something in, we just told them to leave it in a certain area because we were certain that someone was gonna come within the next 10 minutes, and that's exactly what they were asking for. It's unreal. And that while I grow weary, that our God is constant. When I struggle, that he is faithful. And so the important thing to understand is we think that Jesus is whatever I need, but the truth of the passage is actually this line, that whatever I need is found in Jesus. That whatever that longing is in my life, whatever I'm pursuing, whatever I'm looking for, be it meaning, purpose, significance, love, belonging, relationship, whatever that is, it is found in him. That it's not that our God changes, that it's that our God is constant, but that he is the source of everything I need in those moments, that he is the one that I've always been looking for. And this is what I want you to see this morning, because this matters honestly more than anything else, is that if you pursue fulfillment through relationships, what you will find is temporary excitement in the moment of a new relationship, but you will ultimately find out that it is empty. But if you pursue fulfillment through Jesus, not only will you be fulfilled, but you will become like him in the process. And so not only will you find fulfillment, but you will find strength as well in the exact same moment. If you pursue meaning through your career, you will have moments in which you feel successful, that you feel like you're doing what you were meant to do, but you will ultimately find out that it is empty. But if you pursue meaning through Jesus, not only will you find meaning, but you will become like him as well, and you will find out that you are constant, just like he is constant. And so this has been the testament of this past week, is that if our God is constant, then so are we. And if God doesn't get tired of showing up, then neither will we. Then neither will we. And the truth that I have found this week has been this, is that when the enemy does his worst, we will not fear, we will not fail, we will not retreat. That when the enemy does his worst, we will always move forward as a church over and over again. That when the enemy does his worst, we will be at our best. because that is what the community needs in that moment. And so this is what I want you to find today, more than anything else, is I want you to be able to find that whatever it is you've been looking for, that whatever it is that you've been searching for, that it's found in him, that it's found in him. And here's the truth, is that for a lot of us, it takes a storm for us to reorient our lives and redirect our position. And the storm may come in the form of one we've seen this past week, or it may be you lose your job. It may be all of a sudden your marriage is struggling. It may be someone gets sick. That for most of us, what happens is we don't redirect our lives to the source of our fulfillment until disaster strikes. And I've been, over the last couple weeks, I've been meeting with a group of guys, and we've been going through this book on courage. And it's amazing because the conversation around the circle has been that we all feel this desire to be courageous, to sacrifice, to risk, to do something significant. And I want to tell you, this is what I have found has been the secret of fulfillment in my life, is that I identify the thing that I would be willing to die for. Because every single one of us has something. We have a hill, a position, a principle that we would be willing to give our lives for. Is you find the thing that you would be willing to die for, and then you live the rest of your life for that thing. All of us would sacrifice our lives for something. But the question becomes this, is will you live for it as well? And this is the wonder of whatever, is that whatever it is you're looking for is found in Jesus. And the sooner you can reorient your life to live for him, the quicker you will become who you were created to be. This is what I invite you to do right now. If you please stand. And we're going to do something a little bit different this morning for those of you who are typically here. I'm going to ask you right now in this moment if you would close your eyes and bow your head. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think and to pray. And this is what I want to ask you first. What is it that you've been looking for? Not what are you doing, not what have you been up to. What is it that you have been looking for? Is it meaning? Is it significance? Is it belonging? Is it love? What is it that you have been looking for? And now I want to ask you this next question. How's that working out for you? Have you spent your whole life looking for the same thing in the same direction and you still haven't found it? How's that working out for you? And I want you to know that Jesus doesn't simply change to become whatever you need. That whatever you need is already found in him. And so if this is a moment in which you need to make a decision to accept him, and not just to acknowledge that he died for you, but to make a declaration that you will live for him, I invite you right now, just in your head, to your Heavenly Father. You don't need to do this out loud to anyone around you. Just pray this prayer. Lord, I give you my life. Not just that I acknowledge your death, but Lord, I give you my life. Father, I pray right now for the person who is on the edge, for the person who feels hesitant to take this next step, that you would fill them with the courage that they need to understand that you are the one that they have been looking for. That we were created for you, and that our hearts are restless until they rest in you and you alone. And so if that's you this morning, just pray this prayer. Lord, I give you my life. I give you my life. And with your eyes still closed and your head still bowed, I'm gonna ask you in just a second, if you prayed that prayer, to raise your hand so I can pray directly for you. And we raise our hands as a sign of our need and as a proclamation of the truth that we have found. And so if that's you and you have prayed that prayer this morning with no one else looking around, would you just raise that hand high so I can pray directly for you? If you prayed, Lord, I give you my life. Amen. You can put your hands down. Let me pray for you. Father, in this moment, I pray and I lift up to you those who have made this declaration to you. May they pursue you. May they follow you when life makes sense and when it seems confusing. May in this moment they feel your presence and your touch and your love and your mercy and your compassion. May they know that they were created for you and they were created for a purpose and that they were created for significance. That we were uniquely designed and not accidentally made. May they know your love. May they know your truth. And may they spend the rest of their lives building their life upon you, the one who made them, that they would live for you. And we celebrate them this morning and we put them into your hands. And we pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.